The following is a Bergen-Fischer media production.
Hey guys, you are listening to the In the Blood podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, whether you are a new or returning listener. My name is AC Bergen-Fischer, and joining me today is Jason Diceman Moore. We'd like to invite you to consider what is being shared with an open mind and a receptive heart. Before we begin, though, the following disclaimer. Jason and I offer coaching, not therapy. Everything we share is opinion-based and from personal experience. If you require therapy, we would be happy to help you explore your options. For those who would prefer coaching with one or both of us, that can be arranged via email, inthebloodpod@gmail.com. Finally, if you'd like to support this project for as little as $5, you can do so by visiting buymeacoffee.com/inthebloodpod. I don't know, it was earlier this week, I sent you an article about toxic positivity. And I think you and I both had similar reactions to reading that article, which was there was things about it that we agreed with. And there were things about it that I think just rubbed us the wrong way as individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I didn't really want to go too far into preparing for this conversation. I just thought it would be more interesting if we hit this while everything was just sort of like organic, fresh in our minds.
Right.
The only thing I kind of did do in preparation was I asked ChatGPT to give me a definition of what it thought toxic positivity is.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to read that and then get your thoughts on how you would define it differently, if at all, and take it from there.
All right.
So ChatGPT says that toxic positivity is the belief that we should maintain a positive mindset at all costs, even when faced with adversity or difficult emotions. It's the pressure to plaster on a smile and bury our true feelings deep down, lest we be seen as weak or negative. It is the well-intentioned but ultimately harmful advice to look on the bright side or cheer up in the face of genuine pain and struggle.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that.
Okay. I honestly, like, reading that out loud, I don't know that I disagree with that either. I mean, I guess really what it comes down to is not the definition of toxic positivity so much as how toxic is it and how is it a problem? Is it a problem at all?
Well, with like ChatGPT said, forcing down the real feelings and always putting on a happy face, always putting on a smile, that's going to cause, well, one, it's going to cause you to stuff a lot of shit down, and eventually you're going to explode or you're going to implode. There's going to be total chaos in your life because at one point you're going to become, well, okay, how do I feel? And not asking somebody, well, tell me how I feel. Like, how do I feel? I don't know how to act in this situation because I'm so used to being positive.
It kind of feels like the love child of denial and gaslighting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. There's a lot of gaslighting going on there. Just shining somebody on, making them feel good. Well, you know what? In order for somebody to feel good, the truth is, you have to deal with the shit.
Okay, so here's a question, and like not necessarily just for you, but just a question maybe for both of us to ponder. Is this really like a black and white issue? Because if I think about, well, a phrase that you used, I think it was on the last episode, which was fake it till you make it.
Right.
I don't think that's necessarily toxic. I mean, it might be kind of like delusional positivity, but not grasping onto the cold, hard reality of a situation, instead choosing to focus on brighter things can actually lead you to brighter places in some cases, I think.
Yeah, but I don't see, when I use that phrase, I don't necessarily mean positive. you fake it till you make it. So you're doing what you need to do to get where you want to go. I'm not saying, well, act happy until you are. For me, I use that in reference to if you have goals. Even though you don't have money, do what it takes to get the money until it starts rolling in. And continue to do that. Because if you do, like people that are successful, depending what success means to you, of course. But if you mimic somebody who is what you see as rich, whether that rich be financially, whether it be like emotionally fulfilled, whatever rich is to you, if you find somebody that is that and you act that way, that doesn't mean, okay, but when every 24 hours a day you got to act like that. No, when you have feelings, you feel them. When you're done your feeling and you're back on your route to doing where you want to be, then you're going to continue faking till you make it. Act like the people that you want to be like.
It's almost like jogging to get ready for a marathon.
Right. So I'm not using that as like toxic positivity. I'm not saying that it has to be positive at all.
Yeah, because I mean, based on your explanation, you're not denying the problem. You're acknowledging the problem and working on the problem.
Right.
Even though you may not be effectively addressing it, you're taking steps to get there.
Correct. And eventually, you will address it. That's what those steps do. They get you up the stairwell to where you want to be. But toxic positivity, in my opinion, like ChatGPT said, it's somebody who is always telling you, turn the other cheek, be happy, put a smile on, turn that frown upside down. Well, after a while, one, it's going to piss somebody off because I hate fake people. So that's a me thing. But if you're always telling somebody to be happy and you're always going around with a smile on your face, eventually, if it's not real, people are going to see it. I'm not saying fake it till you make it, pretend you're happy until you are. No, because you have to deal with what you're dealing with. And once that is dealt with, then you can start your new road to being happy if something sad happened or you got hurt. And actually, that's a great example. If you get hurt, fake it till you make it doesn't mean, well, walk with a broken leg. No, it means, do what you need to do to heal. And if you want to do a marathon again, once you're healed, fake it till you make it. Start jogging again. Start doing it. Think like an athlete. Start doing what you need to do to get prepared for the marathon.
Except, I don't know, when I started thinking about this whole idea of toxic positivity, I couldn't help it, as I often do. I started reflecting on childhood upbringing, what is my quote unquote normal. And I realized that, I don't know if it was like for religious reasons or if it was a personality thing with my dad. He didn't really have a lot of patience for negativity on any level. And I realized that he really was kind of big on the toxic positivity. Like he didn't want to hear anything bad. He didn't want to hear anybody, bitching, belly aching. I guess part of it was religious because, he'd quote Bible verses talking about how we should do things with a joyful heart, that sort of thing. But the reality is life isn't always joyful. It's not always positive. Right. And while I understand that you don't want to get stuck in that rut of toxic negativity, I realize that always putting the sunny side up, always looking for that silver lining, that can be just as damaging because either extreme, I believe, lands you in denial.
Mm-hmm. And one extreme is just as bad as the other. Toxic negativity and toxic positivity are just two polar opposites of the same scenario.
Well, it's the toxic part that's the problem, right?
Correct. If somebody's positive, okay, they may have just had a really good cry this morning and let out their feelings and did their thing. So when they see you at whatever coffee shop you happen to go to, they got a smile on, they're happy to see you. It's easier to communicate and be friendly because you've got that sadness out. That's not toxic positivity. That's just somebody dealing with their shit and being positive afterwards. But if that person that didn't deal with their crap went out and pretended to be happy, from what I can see, it'd be very easy to see. And they'd be really annoying to be around.
Okay, now when we talk about being annoying to be around, when you've been, well, I know that you have been exposed to people, you have people in your life, whether it be friends, clients, family, whatever the case may be, where sometimes they're dealing with stuff. And it's not like you're telling them that they shouldn't feel bad, but I mean, in an effort to be helpful, I mean, you do take steps to kind of like quote unquote cheer them up. Do you find that it is challenging to walk that line between like being uplifting and being toxically positive?
No, because I'm not. For me, it's situational. Like, and actually, you're a perfect example because there's been times when you've been down and I said, okay, man, let's just do something. Let's get out of this rut. We gotta, let's get in a better mood kind of scenario. But there's also times when I sat down with you and I said, okay, bud, let's deal. What do you need me to be? So it's very situational. I don't, in my opinion anyways, I don't think I consistently try to bring people up because if you don't deal with your crap, you can't get up there.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm interpreting you correctly, it's basically you're taking the time to assess the situation and determine whether it would be more appropriate to practice empathy or more appropriate to give somebody a swift kick in the ass.
Right. Or sometimes, like, you're in a situation, and I know there's been times when I've been with people that have been, like, really depressed, really sad, and, okay, you know what? So in my head, it's, okay, you know what? I know you're going to be really embarrassed if you start to break down, and I can see you're getting to that point. Okay, let's close up and head out of here. Let's go to a park and take a walk. Because then nobody else is around, you can let go, and you're not going to be embarrassed. It's not that I don't want people to be exposed to your emotions, but I don't want you to carry another burden on top of, I don't want people to think you're always happy, but, you're going to be embarrassed, so when next time you see those people that you cried in front of, it's going to be a bit awkward for you. Well, if I can remove you from the situation before you break down, let you break down in a safe space, when you get back there, you're not going to have that kind of embarrassment. And you're not going to have to fake it and become toxically positive by putting on a fake smile and sitting there for the next hour and a half when inside you're breaking down.
Yeah, which, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it sounds like you're not just reading and listening to me in this example, but you're also reading the room, determining, okay, is this really the best situation for this conversation to play out in?
Or specifically for that person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so just taking the next step forward, I know that one of the interesting debates you and I have had a lot over the years is whether society is inherently good or bad.
Right.
So I'm going to pose a society-wide question for you because I think you like to unpack these things probably more than I do. Do you think that societal norms make things difficult by prioritizing a positive outlook over authenticity?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's something I could sit here for the next 3 hours and unpack. Absolutely.
Okay, well, you don't have 3 hours. You got 3 minutes on this topic.
I think it's damaging. I think it's creating a fundamental irregularity in our society. It's, people are crying that, oh no, you're offending me, but they're also telling you, well, don't be authentic, be happy. Change the mood. You have to understand what everybody's going through. You have to create a happy space. Well, not everybody's freaking happy. So why am I going to create a happy space when there are some people that right now don't want to be happy? They just want to cry and deal with their shit. That's creating a societal situation. I don't disagree with safe space. Let me clarify something here. Sorry, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
But I don't think it's a bad thing to create a safe space for people like multiculturalism, for people who are ignorant about the LGBTQ, creating a safe space so they can be in a space where it's safe for them and comfortable. Every space in the freaking world should be this, but unfortunately, because of our societal BS, it isn't.
Right.
So I'm not disagreeing with safe space, but I am disagreeing with false security. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to anybody who's listening. As always, feel free to reach out inthebloodpod@gmail.com and tell us what you agree or disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the recurring themes when I'm talking to different people, doesn't matter if it's clients, acquaintances, just anybody who's having a rough time, is people feeling like, man, I wish people would see me. I wish people would understand me. Mm-hmm. But we can't be seen and understood unless we're in a position where I think we can share our struggles, if we can expose our vulnerabilities. And until we do that, there's no way that we're going to be able to access real, actual, genuine connections and being able to take advantage of the full strength of another person's empathy. We have to be able to let the guard down. We have to be able to communicate. And again, pushing this back into society's lap, I think too often we as a society, we treat vulnerability like it is a weakness. It's something to be ashamed of. As an individual, I like to push back on that, telling people, look, there's no more gangster move than being vulnerable. That takes strength and courage. Mm-hmm. And not only is it a demonstration of strength and courage, but, like I was mentioning just a couple of minutes ago, it actually allows us to connect more deeply with the people around us and also in turn with ourselves, which I think is necessarily a good thing.
Right. So I'm going to add to that because, first off, I totally agree with everything you just said. But I also think great strength comes from people who open up and allow people to be that. Instead of, oh man, don't cry, we're in public, you're going to embarrass me, blah, blah, blah. No, support that person. If we're out and I'm out with Lynn's a very emotional person. And there are some things that will make her so happy she just needs to cry it out. Because it's just, oh my God, that's so cute, it's so happy. I have seen people, for instance, in Walmart, stop crying. We're in the middle of the grocery store. Dude, I want to smack a bitch.
I don't think there's a judge and jury in the world that can convict you.
When Lynn's feeling emotional, whether it's happy or sad emotion, whether it's happy or sad crying specifically, even if it's an ugly cry, I don't care who's around. If she wants to express, my opinion is express. If somebody's got a problem with it, I'll deal with the physicality of it if it comes to that. Not a big deal. And I think it takes a very strong person to be that for somebody else. It puts this false positivity into a whole different room. It doesn't allow for it. If somebody is willing to let somebody else be real with their emotions, there's absolutely no way this false or toxic positivity can be there. And that's one way that we can work together to make sure that people are accepted, loved, cared for exactly who they are, by letting them be real.
Yeah, I had a chance to kind of experiment a little bit yesterday. I met somebody for the first time, and it was a scheduled meeting. We were supposed to have a talk about some serious things, but right at the beginning of the meeting, she said, "So how are you?" And I said, "Do you mind if I ask you how you would like me to answer that?" And she looked a little bit confused. And I said, "Well, do you want the knee-jerk answer, the following the script, tell you, oh, everything's fine, how are you? Or do you want the truth?" And she seemed a little bit shocked. She says, "Let's try the truth."
How did that work out?
And I said, "Honestly, things are going to shits right now for me." And instead of getting straight into the pre-scheduled dialogue that we had intended, we ended up having a beautiful conversation that allowed me to walk away feeling so much more positive than I ever could have faked.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of this toxic positivity, it was actual positivity because I let the bad spirits out.
Bad spirits? Okay. For somebody who doesn't believe in ghosts, yeah, fair enough.
But at the same time, we were able to establish a circle of trust because, I had showed my vulnerability. I had invited her in. As a result, she felt comfortable in sharing with me, which allowed me in. It's a beautiful thing. And if two complete strangers can do this, why can't we just make this a habit? Society as a whole, in this sense, I think we could both agree kind of sucks. But maybe we can poison the well in a good way by introducing different ways of doing things, and hopefully it takes off a little bit.
Yeah, but see, you also did something that's very rare and hardly ever done in our society anymore. You gave somebody the opportunity to choose facade over reality. I don't see that very often at all. As you know, I do it. Do you want to know how I'm feeling now, or do you want to know how I'm feeling because of the day? Because right this second, I'm happy and I'm easy-go-lucky. But if I think about how my day was, well, I'm kind of mad. What's your personal, most vivid memory of toxic positivity in your life?
Oh, God. There's just so many that followed the same theme because, again, it all comes down to
what was the
way
first
my
one
dad
that popped into your head?
Well, and this is why I'm struggling to answer, because my dad had probably like hundreds of the exact same things just played out. It was like he had this cookie cutter response to certain types of things. It was always the same thing, which was he couldn't tolerate anything that sniffed of negativity. I think it maybe played into his insecurity, his anxiety a little bit, because, like what I've learned with people who are in denial is if you offer anything into the situation that challenges this delusion they've created for themselves, the response will be hostile.
Right.
And because he wasn't the person who was taught to solve problems, he was taught to pray about his problems or ignore the problems, because it just wasn't manly to acknowledge things or feel them. Mm-hmm. He preferred just to paint on a fake smile and pretend everything was like fan-effing-tastic, Mm-hmm. And as a result, that's kind of what he expected from me. It's like, well, how was your day at school, son? To answer your question as accurately as I can. I think my first memory is him asking, well, how was your day at school, son? And me saying, I don't want to go back. Well, what's that supposed to mean? Well, the other kids are mean. No, they weren't mean. They just didn't know you very well. Just give them a chance. Of course, they're not going to nobody's going to want to be friends with anybody who's a sad sack. Why don't you try being happy instead of insecure?
Wow.
It's like, well, I can't be happy instead of insecure. I am insecure. I can pretend to be happy. But that's really what he expected was, well, the way he described it is, if you acknowledge negative feelings, then you give them life. You speak them into existence. You give them power. The only way to take their power away is to pretend that they're not there. Which is kind of like a kid who's afraid of a monster under the bed, pulling the blanket over his face, you know, like you haven't fixed anything. You just made yourself feel a little bit better, maybe look like you're doing something. I don't know.
All they did was made it easier for the blood not to splatter on the walls. I think toxic positivity plays too much of a role in today's society. I think it also plays into total acceptance.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean that we should section anybody out. I'm not talking about any kind of prejudice or anything like that. But there are a lot of people in this world that think you should just get along with everybody. Just be happy, you know, just get along with everybody. Or that everybody deserves to be treated equally. I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with that. And it does not have to do with race, it does not have to do with creed, it does not have to do with gender, it does not have to do with sexuality. It has to do with, well, if you're an asshole, I'm not going to like you. It has nothing to do with anything else other than, if you're an idiot, or you're somebody who always has to be right, or you're somebody who always has a better story, I shouldn't have to accommodate you. I shouldn't have to make it so I fake like I like you because I'm supposed to like everybody. That's another form, in my opinion, of toxic positivity. Positivity. Sorry.
Yeah, that word just doesn't like to roll off, does it?
No.
Okay, well, I think we could probably go on about toxic positivity indefinitely, but I mean...
Yeah, remember my 4-hour comment? Yeah.
Is there anything like in closing, you know, less than 4 hours that you'd like to share?
Yeah, don't put up with anybody else's BS. Be who you are. Be happy when you're happy. Be sad when you're sad. And surround yourself with people who are going to accept you for either.
Fair enough. Yeah, when I think about the things that we can do instead of employing toxic positivity, you know, I think we can both agree that, you know, we can start by acknowledging our feelings, even the tough ones, because it is absolutely okay to feel sad or angry sometimes. And it's important to let ourselves feel these feelings without judging ourselves. And when someone else is, yeah, and like you'd mentioned earlier, you know, when somebody else is going through a hard time, we can be there for them with listening, understanding, instead of trying to fix their problems with happy thoughts. You know, I think we can also, like Jason said, challenge the idea that we always have to be positive. Life is going to be full of ups and downs. And I think it's okay to have good days as well as bad days. By being honest about our own struggles, I think we can create a more supportive and understanding community where everyone feels accepted for who they are. And finally, you know, in the end, toxic positivity only makes it harder for us to be true to ourselves and to connect with others. By embracing our feelings and supporting each other through the ups and downs of life, I think we can build a happier and healthier world for everyone. So keeping all of that in mind, my friends, as we go through the next week, let's just do all these things that we've explored today. Let's try to be better to ourselves. Let's try to be better to each other.
Oh, can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Just hug somebody. Somebody that wouldn't expect it. Hug somebody. Be warm.
Beautiful. Anyways, until next week, my friends, You want to take this one?
Much love.